Hello Sketchers! So in this video I'm gonna cover my favorite art supply and techniques that I've talked about all the time in my class. Okay, so these are my favorite tools in terms of drawing and art supplies. I try to keep them really simple for you. I use more than this. I use all kinds of drawing pens and ink, and we're always trying new things, but the simple ones are these. So this is a Fude pen. It is bent nib, so the nib bent up like it's a broken nib, but it's actually meant this way. So when I'm drawing lines, I quite like this one because it can actually do a variety of lines. It can do very thick lines when I put it at this flat angle, and then if I lift it up slightly, it can do thin lines. So it's great to have a pen that can do both thick and thin and thick at the same time. So they make Sailor and Duke, and this is a Chinese one called Hongdian that I've been liking. So in terms of pen and urban sketching, travel sketching, I use this. The next three pens I want to talk about are these. So I tend to have one that is very, very thin, 0.1. It doesn't really matter what brand you buy, but microns are pretty useful, and is available pretty much everywhere. Then I also use Artline. They are water-based but water-resistant paint, so this is 0.4. I like to have options of thin lines and thick lines. This is why I really like this pen before, because this basically is two in one. And then the last one is a Molotow black liner. This is a brush tip pen and small. So this one is thicker and it has a sort of a brushy sort of quality to it, and I really like this one. So this is brush, and I use them in different occasions depending on what I need. So in terms of pencil, I've been hooked. My friends kept saying to me, get this and you'll never want another pencil. I tend to agree. So this is a Blackwing pencil. They have different kinds. They have this square eraser, and they are great because it is it's very soft, but also it can be, you can draw very, very thin, and then you can go also very, very dark. So it's kind of a combination again of an HB to a 4B combination. It's wonderful, and yeah, I've been using that. The next thing I'm going to show you is my current watercolor palette. So I use the Schmincke watercolor palette, and this is basically my colors. I will not go into what colors I have in my palette, but I will just show you this is what I use. And this either I use it in the studio or when I go out, I use them also. I like it because of the fact that there's just one flap, as opposed to there are a lot of other brands that makes them just like this. For example, this is a slightly bigger Schmincke box where it actually flaps open. So some people like a lot more surface to mix, but for me, in terms of on location, this is small enough and there's enough mixing space here for me. So this is my watercolor palette. So I'm just going to show you one of my favorite colors, which is this beautiful violet. The brand I think is White Nights. It's a Russian watercolor brand. It's really, really affordable, and their colors are just amazing. So I'm not one that is loyal to any particular brand, but I do like some of them more than others. I use pans and I use tubes, so yeah. So now let me show you these two white pens. This is Uniball Broad. I'm still trying to find a fine nib white pen. It's a long search because they just don't make them. So far, this is the best one in terms of gel pen, as far as gel pen is concerned. So it makes this sort of line, which is quite fine, but sometimes you just want them smaller. The next one is this Uniposca. So this is also, they say this is called Bullet Shape 0.7 mm. This is beautiful. It's slightly more opaque than the one before, but it also can be broad if I push it to the right a little bit. So this is really, really nice. So these are the brushes that I use. This is a size 8 black velvet. Even though it's size 8, it holds a lot of water and it has a really nice point. So this is one of my go-to. I don't leave the house without it, and I even have the non-travel brush version that I use a lot. The next size is a size 6. So this is Escoda brushes, travel brushes. I think it's called Versatile. So this one is a size 6. So it doesn't have the same, even though it doesn't have the same nice point as the black velvet, but it does do very well with really thin lines, and it holds not that much water, but it's beautifully smooth. So that's the next size that I use. And then the last one is the smallest one, which is also a Escoda. It's a Perla, so it's a synthetic brush. And this one is when I really want to do dry brushing, or when I want to do very delicate little lines. This works beautifully for that as well. So this is the only one that doesn't hold as much water as the other two, but that's why but it does a lot of really fine lines. So those are my 3 brushes. So that concludes the art supplies, and now let's go into the techniques. First technique is continuous line. I like this a lot for warm-ups and also just to loosen up. So you take your line and you go as long as possible with it as you trace what you see. It's transformed into the object. Notice that sometimes I go over the same line because that's where my eyes go. The next one is using my non-dominant hand to do one continuous line. This is so freeing, and your line is so imperfect, your expectation is lower, but you're also just playful, more relaxed. And notice how my lines are just way more expressive as well. I really love this. And the next one is using my brushes to draw. So I will try to get different kinds of thick and thin lines with my brushes, and this is the way I warm up, trying to figure out how thick and thin can I do it, and then how often can I do it. The next technique is even wash and beading. Beading means you have a beautiful juicy mix, and you see the bead that are forming at the bottom here, and by beading means I create that bead and then I pull that bead down with more water so that I create this really nice wash using it, a sort of coffee consistency. Next technique is wet on wet. I think this is self-explanatory. And using my Fude pen, directly painting, sketching with it. And sometimes directly using the white pen also to draw. And then filling it with a wash to create the details. And I use the jelly roll as well. This is from Sakura, to add white pens on top of dark backgrounds. And then finally, I use a lot of watercolor layering to create shapes, to add shadows, and I do this right at the end, especially when I'm drawing people. And I love this technique probably the most. So that is it, guys. I hope you enjoyed that and learned something, and see you around in the next video.